Aylin and Diego met in college. Diego transferred to there from another university. His father died in the summer, his mother was left alone, and he decided to move closer to her. The young people fell in love at first sight and soon married. And 9 months later, Aylin gave Diego a son. The young husband helped his wife as much as he could. He did laundry and cooked while Aylin was taking care of the baby. He got up at night to let Aylin sleep and rest from the eternally screaming baby. Diego loved Aylin very much, and somehow in a fit of passion, he said to her, "If you ever betray me, I have no reason to live any longer." Aylin remembered his words for the rest of her life. They graduated from university at different times. First Diego, and 3 years later Aylin. Diego got a job at a factory and became chief engineer by the age of 40. Aylin had a good job with an advertising company. The 20 years they lived together only strengthened their marriage. Aylin blossomed by the age of 40 and was viewed with admiration by many men. Diego was not macho, but had the discreet masculine appearance, which is so attracted to women. So he was not deprived of the attention of the feminine half of humanity. But despite this, they never gave reason to doubt their loyalty to each other, and their future seemed happy and unclouded. It all started when one morning in early December, Aylin received a call from her best friend Rihanna. She was a good person, but she liked to teach and give advices. Aylin listened patiently, but never took her seriously. "Hello, darling. When are you going to show off your gift?" "I don't understand. What are you speaking about?" answered Aylin, surprised. "Didn't your hubby present you anything?" There was a sound of disappointment in Rihanna's voice. "I saw him in a jewellery store a week ago. He was buying something. I thought it was for you." "No, he didn't present me anything like that," said Aylin in thought. "It's strange. If a husband buys his wife a present, he gives her one right away," said confidently Rihanna, who has been married 3 times. "And yours is a bit slow. Or maybe he got a woman on the side. Well, do not grieve. Bye, I'll call you later." Aylin put the phone on the table. Really strange. If Diego had bought something, she would know. Could it be that Rihanna had made a mistake? Aylin finished her coffee and began to get ready for work. Running past the very same jewellery store, she suddenly decided to go inside. Behind the counter there was a young woman. Aylin apologised and told a heartbreaking story about how her husband had given her a piece of jewellery and she wanted to know what else was in that collection. "Here's a picture of my husband. He was here last week. Too bad I didn't bring the gift. You would have remembered right away." The girl furrowed her brow, but remembered. "Look, this is the ring he bought you. It's platinum and has such a beautiful diamond. And you can get such adorable earrings and a pendant." Aylin looked at the price with amazement. The sum was enormous. Thanking the saleswoman, Aylin left the store. Yes, such gifts Diego never made her. Who did he buy that ring for? Maybe he really has a mistress. Aylin pictured Diego in the arms of another woman for a moment, and she felt sick. In the chest bubbled resentment and rage, but she pulled herself together, leaving the showdown for the evening. Coming home from work, Aylin made dinner mechanically. Her resentment and anger at her husband didn't subside, but became even stronger. Finally, Diego came and kissed his wife as usual. "You're more charming than ever today." Aylin almost choked with rage, but pulled herself together. Diego went to the bathroom, and Aylin pulled his cell phone out of his jacket. She didn't find any suspicious calls, and she moved on to text messages. Suddenly she saw a reminder from the bank about the monthly repayment of a loan taken a month ago. Now Aylin realized where the money for the ring came from. Then she opened WhatsApp and was really shocked. A message sent to some Helena. "Sweetheart, thank you for your love and patience. I love your eyes, your hair, your hands. You are everything and more to me. You are the one for whom I began to live and breathe. I will carry you in my arms for the rest of my life." Aylin couldn't read any further. Tears were covering her eyes and her hands were shaking. She shoved the phone back into her husband's jacket pocket before she was afraid it would fall out of her hands. Her world collapsed. Emptiness was left. Life had lost its meaning. Only one thing swirled around in her head. Why did he do this to me? That there was a mistress she no longer doubted, and she was apparently a long time because he had given her an expensive gift. Diego came out of the bathroom. "Darling, let's go to dinner." He wiped off his wet hair and went into the kitchen. "What are we having tonight for dinner? How are you going to treat your loving husband?" "Eat without me," said Aylin, fighting with herself not to throw a tantrum right at this moment. "I feel unwell. I'm going to lie down." Diego asked for a long time what was wrong, trying to help. But such hypocrisy brought tears to Aylin's eyes. She slammed the door to the bedroom, suggesting that her husband sleep in the hall on the couch. Standing under the door, Diego questioned for a long time what was going on, but finally gave up and left for the kitchen. Aylin fell asleep only in the morning. Diego didn't wake her up and left early for work. When Aylin woke up, she called work and took the day off, and then called Rihanna and asked her to come over. "What an old dog," said Rihanna, even with some secret admiration. 20 years of pretending to be a loving husband. They're all scoundrels. They only want one thing. Rihanna sympathized with Aylin, but it was obvious that in her heart she was gloating. But Aylin didn't notice anything. She sat idly, suffering the betrayal. "You should teach him a lesson. Let him feel the same pain. You're a beautiful woman. Get yourself a lover and have a good time. Cheat on him right on the matrimonial bed. You'll see. You'll feel better at once," proposed Rihanna. A brilliant plan, as it seemed to her. Aylin looked up at her with her tear-stained red eyes. "That's right. Let that goat know how much it hurts." At that moment, a message came from Diego. "Honey, there is an emergency at the branch. The conveyor broke down. I am urgently sent on a business trip, and I'm afraid that we will work until the evening. I will not drive home at night. I will come tomorrow at about 11 o'clock. Love, don't miss me." Aylin gasped at the insolence. He's going to his mistress. Well, there'll be a surprise for him. After Rihanna leaving, she called Mark. They worked together, and he had long been trying to woo her, making ambiguous hints. Aylin always rejected him, but now the time had come. She called him on the pretext that a program on her laptop hadn't run up, and they arranged for 10 p.m. at Aylin's house. Mark took the hint at once and said that he would solve all her problems with joy. Aylin set the table, took a bath, dressed frankly, and waited for the candidate for lover. Mark came exactly at the appointed time. He brought flowers, a bag of fruit, and 2 bottles of wine. They sat down at the coffee table, laid right in the bedroom, and the romantic dinner began. Aylin emptied her glass over and over again with a kind of frenzy, trying to drink herself into oblivion. She didn't remember how Mark undressed her and how they ended up in bed. She came to her senses when her lover lay contentedly beside her. Suddenly, it was as if she had sobered up, and she realized that she had behaved like a fool. "You're just gorgeous," said Mark, holding her close to him. "Are you sure your husband won't show up tonight?" "He's not my husband anymore." Resentment swept over her again. "He's busy tonight, as well as me." Aylin looked at the clock. It was 1:30 in the morning. Mark got up and went to take a shower. Aylin leaned back on the pillows. Mark was worse than her husband in every way, and she suddenly wished that Diego were beside her now, and that the whole situation was just a nightmare dream. She even almost cried, because revenge was done, but it didn't bring any satisfaction. Suddenly, she heard a click of the front door. A familiar voice said, "Darling, are you still awake?" And her husband's figure appeared on the threshold of the bedroom. Diego wanted to say something else, but at that time Mark came out of the bathroom. When he saw Aylin's husband, he covered himself with his hands and began to make his way sideways to his clothes, which had been thrown on the floor. Diego remained standing on the threshold of the bedroom. There was a dim light in the room, and he could clearly see his wife's naked body on the bed. The husband was looking at Aylin and her lover in silence, and there was so much pain in his gaze that Aylin could not stand it. She started screaming at him about her ruined life, about his mistress, about how she had a right too. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Mark grabbing an armful of his clothes, slip past Diego to the exit. Aylin became hysterical. Diego silently went to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, put it on the bedside table with the remains of a romantic dinner, and then, without saying a word, went out. When the front door slammed, Aylin was silent. There was no point in screaming and hysterics any more. She remembered the unseeing, full of pain look of her husband, and rolling up in a sheet, came to the window. It was clearly visible as Diego came out of the entrance. Staggering like a drunk, he walked under the rattling light of the streetlight and disappeared into the darkness. Aylin could not fall asleep that night. Had she felt better? She could not yet understand. There was a kind of ringing emptiness around her. She tried to convince herself that she had done the right thing. As the saying goes, an eye for an eye. Rihanna arrived in the morning. "You look awful, dear friend. Your door is not even locked. Let's have a coffee." Aylin was silent. She had no thoughts, only her eyes began to fill with tears again. "Well, did you kick him out?" asked Rihanna, pouring the hot coffee into cups, and Aylin told, in a nutshell, about the night's events. "You did the right thing, so he deserves it. He probably stays at his mistress's place," she said warily and sipped her hot coffee. Aylin looked up. Opposite on the wall hung a calendar. Today's date was circled in red felt-tip pen. December the 6th. Wedding anniversary. 20 years exactly. That made it all the more painful. Suddenly the doorbell rang. Aylin thought it was her husband coming to apologize, but there were 2 young men on the doorstep. One of them placed a large basket of her favorite white roses in front of her. "Congratulations on your wedding anniversary," said the other, and handed her a receipt. "Sign for the delivery. All the best." Aylin mechanically carried the basket into the kitchen and silently placed it on the table. White roses were her favorite flowers. Every anniversary, Diego presented her with such a bouquet. Suddenly, among the flowers, she saw a card and a box lined with red velvet. From a bad premonition, Aylin's heart squeezed. She tried to read the card, but the letters sprawled and overlapped one another, and she asked Rihanna, "Sweetheart, thank you for your love and patience. I love your eyes, your hair, your hands. You are everything and more to me. You are the one for whom I began to live and breathe. I will carry you in my arms for the rest of my life. Happy anniversary to us. Always yours, Diego." Rihanna looked frightened at Aylin and slowly sank on the chair. Aylin opened the box, already knowing what was in it. A beautiful platinum ring with a diamond, in which the daylight reflected. An engraving, "To Aylin, from Diego," was clearly visible on the inside. Aylin tried to get up, but her legs wouldn't listen to her. Her senses were gone. There was only unbearable pain. She already understood everything. "Your Diego won't go anywhere. He'll come back for sure," said Rihanna, trying to reassure her friend. But Aylin suddenly remembered her husband's words. "If you ever betray me, I have no reason to live any more. He won't come again. Never."